असल बातों पे आएंगे। अल्लाह ताला ने कुरान मजीद, जैसा कि हमने अभी तिलावत की, एक छोटा सा सूरह असर कहते हैं, बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम, वल अस्र इन्नल इंसाना लफी खुस्र। ये कुरान का बहुत छोटा सा सूरा है कि जब इस्लाम आया था, मक्के में शुरुआत हुई थी इस्लाम की बिगिनिंग, तो मुसलमान इसको जब भी कोई मिलता था आके आपस में, तो इस सूरे को पढ़ा करते थे। जब जुदा होते वो पढ़ते थे। मैं आपसे मिला, सलाम अलैकुम, सूरा पढ़ता था, वो भी जो जिससे मैं मिल रहा हूँ वो भी सूरा पढ़ता था, उसके बाद जो है असल काम शुरू करते थे, गुफ्तगू होती। तो ये अच्छा बेहतरीन फेल है जो उस वक्त किया जाता था। अल्लाह ने कसम खाई है, वल अस्र, अस्र की यानी ज़माने की कसम। यहाँ पर मुफस्सिरीन बहुत सारी बातें हैं, मुफस्सिरीन के दरमियान में अस्र ज़माने की कसम खाई है कि जो टाइम है, जो वक्त है दिन का, अस्र का जो वक्त है उसकी कसम खाई है, या नमाज अस्र की कसम खाई है, या फिर जो है बेअसत की कसम खाई है, या इमाम के ज़हूर की कसम खाई है। तो ये चारों चीज़ें जो हैं इसमें मुराद है। इन्नल इंसाना लफ़ी खुस्र, बेशक इंसान घाटे में है, नुकसान में है, खुसरान में है। अल्लाह ताला यहाँ पर कह रहा है कि इंसान घाटे में है। इल्लल्लज़ीना आमनू व अमिलुस्सालिहात, वो लोग घाटे में नहीं हैं कि जिन्होंने ईमान ले आकर अक़ीदे के साथ, मजबूत ईमान के साथ लाइफ करते हैं, ज़िंदगी गुजारते हैं। और उसके बाद व अमिलुस्सालिहात, नेक काम बजा लाते हैं। एक साले नहीं है बल्कि सालिहात, बहुत सारे काम, बहुत सारे नेक काम बजा लाते हैं। और उसके बाद वतवासौ बिल हक़, और एक दूसरे को हक़ की वसीयत करते हैं, तलकीन देते हैं, दावत देते हैं। वतवासौ बिस्सब्र, और सब्र की तलकीन और दावत देते हैं। ये चार चीज़ें हो गई, एक ईमान, दूसरा अमले सालिहात, तीसरा तवासौ बिल हक़, हक़ की तलकीन और दावत, वसीयत, और उसके बाद सब्र की वसीयत और दावत। तो ये चार चीज़ें अगर किसी के पास हैं तो वो घाटे में नहीं है, वो नुकसान में नहीं है, वो खुसरान में नहीं है। अगर ये चार चीज़ें नहीं हैं तो वो घाटे में है। अल्लाह ताला ने ज़रर नहीं कहा, नुकसान नहीं कहा, बल्कि खुसरान कहा। ये भी एक पॉइंट है, तफसीरी नुक्ता है। नुकसान कहता तो कम हो जाना, नुकसान कहते हैं कम हो जाने को, या आपके पास टाइम के लिए कुरान मजीद में अल्लाह ताला ने बहुत सारे मकामात पर कसम खाई है। बहुत जब इंपॉर्टेंट होती है, बहुत कीमती अहमियत होती है, तो उसकी अल्लाह कसम खाता है। वल फज्र, फज्र की कसम खाई, वद्दुहा, चाश्त की कसम खाई, सहरगाह की कसम खाई, वन्नहार, दोपहर की कसम खाई, वल्लैल, शाम की कसम खाई। तो ये बहुत मुख्तलिफ जो टाइम के जो मुख्तलिफ हिस्से हैं, तमाम हिस्सों की अल्लाह ताला ने कसम खाई है। तो ये सुबह भी, सहर भी, दिन भी, रात भी, रात के वो हिस्से भी, सहर के हिस्से, फज्र के हिस्से, जो ऑल टाइम वक्त की पहचान, अवेयरनेस ऑफ वक्त। 60 सेकेंड मिलाएंगे, 1 मिनट होगा। 60 को 24 घंटे बेकार कर रहे हैं तो गोया कि आपने 86,400 सेकेंड्स बेकार कर दिए, बेहुदा कर दिए। कितना लॉस किया आपने? सिर्फ 24 घंटे की बात हुई है, एक शब रोज की, एक डे की, एक दिन की, ठीक है। अब फिर इसी को आप जो है मल्टीपल करते चले जाइए 24 घंटों को, हफ्तों में कितने हो गए, हफ्तों से महीनों में, महीनों से सालों में, तो कितना अगर आपने फायदा कर लिया, फायदा उठाया, लॉस नहीं किया टाइम को, तो आप जो है 10 में फायदे में जाएंगे। अगर लॉस कर दिया आपने टाइम को, ये जो चंद सेकेंड बैठे थे हमने बेहुदा गुफ्तगू कर रहे थे, ये चंद सेकेंड जमा हो गए तो कितने मिनटें हो जाती हैं, मिनटों से घंटे हो जाते हैं, ये कितना बड़ा लॉस हो जाता है आपको। तो टाइम जो है ठहरता नहीं है, टाइम एक जगह ठहरा हुआ नहीं है, बल्कि चलता रहता है। आपके और मेरे कहने से टाइम रुकता नहीं है, टाइम चलता रहता है, सेकेंड चलते 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 जा रहे हैं, मिनट बन रहे हैं, मिनटों से घंटे बन रहे हैं, घंटों से दिन बन रहे हैं, दिनों से हफ्ते बन रहे हैं, हफ्तों से महीने बन रहे हैं, महीनों से साल बन रहे हैं। तो इस तरह से जो है ये चल रहा है, फास्ट चल रहा है टाइम। टाइम को वेस्ट नहीं करना है, वक्त का ख्याल करना। टाइम जो है रुकता नहीं, टाइम देखना नहीं, टाइम चलता रहता है, जा रहा है। आप इस वक्त, आप कितने साल के हैं? 18 साल के हैं। आप 17 साल के नहीं है ना, 16 साल के नहीं है ना, फिर 16 साल की तरफ आएंगे, आप नहीं आएंगे, 15 साल की तरफ आएंगे, नहीं आएंगे। मैं 54 का हूँ, 53 का नहीं हूँ ना, 52 का नहीं, 51 का भी नहीं। मैं आना चाहूँ तो नहीं आ सकता ना, ऊपर ही जाऊंगा। यदि मेरी जो अगर 60 साल की है, 70 साल की उम्र मेरी है, तो मैं ये खुश हो रहा हूं कि मेरी उम्र बढ़ रही है? नहीं, मेरी उम्र कम हो रही है, मेरा वक्त कम हो रहा है, मेरा वक्त जो है मुझे नहीं मिल रहा है। अभी 7 बजे क्लास का ऐलान किया गया था, 7 o'clock को आपकी कॉन्फ्रेंस शुरू हो रही है, तो इस वक्त क्या टाइम है? 7 नहीं रहे ना अभी, तो टाइम गुजर रहा है, टाइम पास हो रहा है। तो अब आपको चाहिए कि टाइम की कदर करें। टाइम अनमोल हीरा है, टाइम बहुत कीमती है, बहुत वैल्यू है टाइम की। टाइम को ऐसे ही बेहुदा कामों में खर्च मत करो, टाइम बहुत कीमत है, टाइम की बहुत वैल्यू है। टाइम को जाया न करो, टाइम को बर्बाद न करो बेहुदा कामों में नहीं। ये मोबाइल जो है ना, जो हमारा टाइम ले रहा है, बहुत बड़ा शैतान है। सिर्फ आवाज आने और आवाज जाने और लिमिट से जहां पे जरूरत है उतना ही इस्तेमाल करना चाहिए, वरना हमारा पूरा टाइम जो है मोबाइल ले लेता है। और उसके बाद जो है हम जब समझ आती है हमको, उस वक्त जो है अंदाजा होता है कि हमने कितना कीमती, जवानी का कितना कीमती टाइम जो है मोबाइल में गंवा दिया, जाया कर दिया। अब मैं दोबारा पलट कर जवान होना चाहता हूं तो जवान नहीं हो सकता। ये जो बेहतरीन और खूबसूरत लाइफ है आपकी, ये बेहतरीन उम्र है आपकी, ये फिर दोबारा वापस आने वाली नहीं है, तेजी से गुजर रही है, बहुत तेजी से ये लाइफ जो है गुजर रही है। इसको जितना इंसान टाइम टेबल बनाकर उसको यूज कर लेगा उतना अकीमत होगा। 2 चीजें हैं, याद रखिए, 2 चीजें, एक है वक्त और एक है समझ। टाइम और समझ। खुशनसीब लोगों को वक्त और समझ दोनों एक में जमा होते हैं, वरना अक्सर दोनों चीजें जब आपको अच्छी तरह से समझ में आ जाए तो फिर आपके पास टाइम नहीं रहता। 10 साल 12 साल 15 साल में समझ नहीं, टाइम है बहुत ज्यादा, समझ नहीं आ रहा है। जब आप 40 साल 50 साल के 30 साल के हो जाएंगे तो फिर आपको समझ आ जाएगी, टाइम नहीं रहेगा। 40 साल का 50 साल का आदमी आप इस तरह से आपके स्टूडेंट बन के जो है आप कुछ सीख के कुछ ये चीजें जो आपको बताई जा रही है कुछ सीखने का टाइम है आपके पास, समझ में नहीं आ रहा है। खुश नसीब है वो कि जो इस वक्त समझ ले। 10 साल की उम्र में 12 साल की उम्र में 15 साल 20 साल की उम्र में समझ में आ जाए उसके तो बहुत खुश नसीब है। और अक्सर लोगों को मेजॉरिटी को समझ उस वक्त आता है जब टाइम नहीं रहता। टाइम जो पास हो जाता है गुजर जाता है तब समझ में आता है। तो कोशिश करें कि किसी तरह से हम टाइम को ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा यूज़ करें, इस्तेमाल करें। एक मरतबा सलवात पढ़ें मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद। पैगंबर इस्लाम ने एक खूबसूरत हदीस इरशाद की। क्या है? नेमतान अक्सर उन्नास ला यअलमून अस्सिहह वल इराद। दो नेमतें हैं, दो नेमतें कि जिनको अक्सर लोग नहीं जान पाते। एक सेहत और एक फुर्सत, तंदुरुस्ती और फुर्सत, ये दो चीजों को अक्सर लोग नहीं समझ में आता। जब तक तंदुरुस्त हैं उस वक्त तक आपकी तंदुरुस्ती की कीमत का अंदाजा नहीं होता। जब बीमार हो जाएंगे तो तंदुरुस्ती को याद करेंगे। ये कितनी बड़ी कीमती चीज है मेरे पास थी, कितनी अच्छी और बहुत वैल्यूबल चीज जो है मेरे पास थी, तंदुरुस्ती बहुत बड़ी नेमत। और दूसरे क्या है? फुर्सत, टाइम। टाइम आपके पास जब तक था उसकी कदर नहीं की। जब आप बहुत ज्यादा बिजी हो गए, बहुत ज्यादा कामों में मशगूल हो गए तो उस वक्त आप अपनी जवानी को, इस टाइम को याद करेंगे। अब बहुत सारा टाइम है दरख्तों के नीचे बैठने का, खेल कूद में, इधर उधर बेहुदा कामों में, मोबाइल में चिपके रहने का वगैरह वगैरह। मगर जब आप जो है कुछ बड़े हो जाएंगे, कामों में मशगूल हो जाएंगे तो आपके पास जो ये टाइम था, आपके पास जो ये वक्त था, इसकी कीमत का अंदाजा उस वक्त लगेगा। तंदुरुस्ती, सेहत, जब बीमारियां शुरू होती हैं तो सेहत की मदद करेगी। जब आपके पास फुल बिजी हो जाएंगे, आपका शेड्यूल पूरा टाइम टेबल जो है पूरा, कब खाना, कब पीना, कब सोना, कब काम पे जाना, कब काम से आना, कब सोना, ये सारी चीजें टाइम टेबल फिक्स हो जाएगा तो उस वक्त आपको पता चलेगा कि ये जो नेमत अल्लाह ताला ने दी थी वो नेमत मैंने कितनी आसानी से गंवा दी। ये मेरे हाथ से कितनी बड़ी नेमतें थी कि जो मेरे हाथ से निकल गई। यही वजह है इंसान जो है उस वक्त चालाकी ये है कि जल्दी समझ ले, अभी टाइम है, अभी आपके पास टाइम है, जल्दी समझ ले तो आप जो है वेस्ट नहीं करेंगे, वरना टाइम वेस्ट हो जाएगा। आखिरत में हर चीज फरियाद करेगी। कुरान फरियाद करेगा कि मुझे यूज क्यों नहीं करा, मुझ पे तो पढ़ा क्यों नहीं गया, अमल क्यों नहीं किया। मस्जिदें फरियाद करें वरना वही हम जो बचपन में पढ़ाया 50 years back, 45 years back, सुबह हुई, शाम हुई, उम्र यूं तमाम। सुबह होती है, शाम होती है, उम्र तमाम हो जाती है। अगर हमने टाइम से, वक्त से, उम्र से फायदा नहीं उठाया तो हमारे लिए रुकती नहीं है कि ये बेचारा क्लास में नहीं गया है, ये बेचारा काम नहीं किया गया है, तो आज ये 40 साल का हो गया है तो इसको बचा दो, 20 साल में रख दो। नहीं, सुबह भी, शाम भी, उम्र भी, तमाम हुई, कुछ भी हासिल नहीं हुआ। गया वक्त फिर हासिल आता नहीं। टाइम जब गुजर जाता है तो फिर वापस रुकता नहीं है, वापस आने वाला नहीं है। टाइम जो है तेजी के साथ ये सारी कायनात एक टाइम टेबल के तरीके से जो चल रही है। ये जो निजाम है, सूरज वक्त पे निकलता है, वक्त पे डूबता है, चांद इसी तरह से, सितारे इसी तरह से, और एक कायनात का जो सिस्टम है, चांद, सूरज, दरिया, दरख्त, पहाड़, सितारे, काम तो जो है आगे के लिए नहीं छोड़ना है, बाद में करने के बाद करेंगे, उसी टाइम जब जो काम करना है उसी टाइम करना है। जो काम करना था वो नहीं किया, नहीं करने वाले काम कर देते। ये बता है कि यहाँ पर थोड़ी सी बड़ों के लिए भी निज़ाम को बदलने के लिए निज़ाम आगे कहते हैं, उम्र भर गालिब यही भूल करता रहा। भूल चेहरे पर थी और साफ आईना करता रहा। चेहरे में भूल है, मैं आईना साफ कर रहा हूं, आईना साफ कर रहा हूं तो मेरा चेहरा साफ होता है। आईने को साफ करने से आपका चेहरा नहीं, भूल को साफ हो। तो मैं ये सोच रहा हूं कि मेरे बच्चे अच्छे हो जाएं, मेरे छोटे भाई नेक हो जाए, अच्छे हो जाए। मैं खुद को बुराई में डाला हुआ हूँ, मैं खुद को गलत कामों में डाला हुआ हूँ, तो कैसे पॉसिबल है मैं खुद सही हो जाऊं तो मेरे बच्चे मुझे देखकर सही हो जाएंगे, मेरे छोटे भाई मुझे। तो जो काम मुझे करना है मुझे करना कुछ था, कर कुछ रहे, तो इससे कुछ भी मिलने वाला नहीं है, कुछ भी हासिल होने वाला नहीं है, कुछ भी फायदा होने वाला नहीं है। तो हम कोशिश करें कि हम अपनी लाइफ में एक टाइम टेबल बनाएं, उसी टाइम टेबल के तहत जो है हम अपनी लाइफ इब्तिदा में, बिगिनिंग में, आगाज में आपके अंजाम का ख्याल रखें। आपका जो लाइफ का जो लास्ट का हिस्सा है वो अभी तय करें, अभी से तय करें मुझे क्या करना है, क्या बनना है, क्या कुछ हासिल करना है। शुरू ही में, इतना ही में आपका मकसद और एम जो है तय होना चाहिए। अभी आप 10 साल के हैं, अभी आप 15 साल के हैं, तो 50 साल, 60 साल, 70 साल तक का टाइम टेबल आपके पास होना चाहिए कि मुझे कहाँ से कहाँ तक पढ़ना है, पढ़ने के बाद मुझे क्या करना है, उसके बाद जो है क्या, पूरा टाइम टेबल आपका शेड्यूल जो है। तो कामयाब वो इंसान है कि जो शुरू ही में वक्त की कीमत का अंदाजा लगा ले, वक्त की कीमत को समझ ले, वक्त की कदर करने लग जाए, तो फिर उसकी जिंदगी खुशियां ही खुशियां। वो कौमें कामयाब कौमें हैं कि जो वक्त का ख्याल रखें। अगर कौमों में, लोगों में वक्त की कदरदानी आ जाए तो वो कौमें जो है कामयाब हो जाती है। वो कौमें जो वक्त को ऐसे ही जाया कर देती हैं, वक्त का ख्याल नहीं, वक्त की पाबंदी नहीं पाबंदी का ख्याल नहीं किया तो फिर जो है आपका तरक्की करना बहुत मुश्किल हो जाएगा, बहुत दुश्वार हो जाएगा। तो कोशिश करें कि अभी से बेहतरीन करें। टाइम यानी गोल्ड, टाइम यानी लाइफ, इसको जो है आसानी से जाने नहीं देना। ये बहुत अनमोल हीरा है, ये डायमंड है, ये बहुत कीमती हीरा है कि जो आपके पास है। मैं आपको एक नुक्ते की तरफ इशारा करूं, बहुत ज्यादा तवज्जो से सुनिए। अल्लाह ताला ने 24 घंटे सबको बराबर दिए हैं। गरीब को 23 घंटे, अमीर को 24 घंटे नहीं। गरीब को 20 घंटे, अमीर को 24 घंटे नहीं। सबको इक्वल, सबको अल्लाह ताला ने 24 घंटे दिए हैं। उन 24 घंटों सबको तरक्की की तरफ जाना है, फायदा उठाना है। ऐसा नहीं कि किसी को जो है 20 घंटे दे दिया, किसी को 24 घंटे नहीं, सबको इक्वल, सबको बराबर के 24 घंटे मिले। इन 24 घंटों से हमको चाहिए कि फायदा उठाए। तो कोशिश करें चंद की तरफ। एक खुलासा, एक हम अभी से अहद करके उठे कि अपनी जिंदगी में एक पेपर लेकर टाइम टेबल बनाएंगे। बगैर टाइम टेबल के हम लाइफ नहीं गुजारेंगे। टाइम बनाएंगे कि कितने, सबसे पहले स्टार्ट करें कितने बजे से कितने बजे तक मैं सोऊंगा, स्लीपिंग टाइम। उस बाद जब मैं उठूंगा तो कितने बजे से कितने बजे तक क्या काम करूंगा। और उसके बाद क्लास में स्टूडेंट है तो क्लास में जाएंगे, स्कूल कितने बजे से कितने बजे तक, फिर उसको वापस आने के बाद मेरे पास क्या टाइम टेबल। उसके बाद उसी पे पाबंदी के साथ काम करना। अगर आपने अपने हाथों से पेपर में लिख दिया कि इस टाइम से इस टाइम तक ये काम, इस टाइम से इस टाइम तक ये काम, तो फिर आपके पास फुर्सत नहीं रहेगी। ये जो टाइम पास है ना, ये टाइम पास करेगा, हल्दी के दाने खाओ टाइम पास करने के लिए, ये गलत है, गलत स्लोगन है। टाइम पास हमारे पास नहीं है। मैं क्यों भाई मोबाइल में लगे हुए हो टाइम पास करने के लिए, मेरे साथ टाइम पास नहीं है हमारे पास। टाइम पास बिल्कुल डिलीट करो। आज की लाइफ में अभी से टाइम पास का ख्याल तसव्वुर मत करो। अगर आपने टाइम टेबल बना लिया तो फिर टाइम पास नहीं है आपके पास। आपके पास टाइम कम रहेगा, काम ज्यादा रहेगा। तो अभी से कोशिश करें, आज से ये करें कि हर आपके जिस कमरे में आप जिस घर में जिंदगी गुजार रहे हैं, हर एक का एक अच्छा होना चाहिए पेपर जो चिपका के कमरे में रख दे। ये टाइम से ये टाइम तक पूरा शेड्यूल 24 आवर्स का, वीक का, मंथ का और ईयर का पूरा टाइम टेबल आपके पास होना चाहिए। तभी आप तरक्की कर सकते हैं, तभी आप कामयाबी की तरफ जा सकते हैं, तभी आप खुद भी कुछ बन सकते हैं और अपनी कौम, अपने खानदान, अपने माशरे, अपनी सोसाइटी, अपने गांव, अपनी मिल्लत के लिए, अपने वतन के लिए कुछ बनकर दिखा सकते हैं। तबाह हो गई तो कौमें कि जो टाइम का ख्याल नहीं किया, कामयाब हो गई वो कौमें कि जो टाइम का ख्याल। तो यहाँ पर आखिर में मैं चंद जुमले इसी टाइम और हालात हाज़िरा के एतबार से, फिलिस्तीन हमारी सांसों में आज फिलिस्तीन, हमारे उठने बैठने में फिलिस्तीन। हमारा सलाम हो कि जो अभी मैंने शुरू में सूरह कौसर की तिलावत की, वो तवासौ बिल हक़ व तवासौ बिस सब्र। हर कदम कदम पर आपको फिलिस्तीन और गज़ा के सब्र नजर आएगा, हमारे सारे हाथ नजर आएंगे। एक रोटी मिली है, खुद 2-3 दिन का भूखा हूँ, प्यासी हूँ, बच्चा है, बच्ची है, मगर वो पूरी रोटी भी कम है उसके लिए, मगर दूसरों को तकसीम कर रहे हैं। खुद के माँ बाप शहीद हो गए हैं, भाई शहीद हो गए हैं, मगर वो बच्चा दूसरों को सब्र की दावत दे रहा है, अपना भूल रहा है, दूसरे को सब्र की तरकीब दे रहा है। तवासौ बिल हक़ व तवासौ बिस सब्र। हमारा सलाम इबरत हासिल करें। अब कोई सवाल, कोई चीज़ समझ में नहीं आई है, कोई चीज़ मैं अच्छी तरह से वाज़ेह नहीं कर सका, तो आप पूछ सकते हैं, पूछिए, मैं आपकी खिदमत में जवाब देने के लिए। जी पीछे पीछे जी 5 फायदे, ये पूरी तकरीर में पूरे इंपॉर्टेंट्स ही थे, पूरे फायदे ही थे। आपको कुछ मालूम है? आप बताइए, कुछ एक दो आप खुद बताइए।
जैसे कि अपने आप को अच्छे से सीखा कैसा बनाना है और तो
अगर आप वक्त की कद्र को समझ लेंगे, वक्त की वैल्यूज़ को समझ लेंगे, वक्त की पहचान, अवेयरनेस को समझ लेंगे, तो खुद ब खुद पूरी ज़िंदगी का, पूरी लाइफ का एक एक लम्हा, एक एक सेकेंड, एक एक मिनट आपके लिए फ़ायदा होगा। वरना जो है आपका उठना, आपका बैठना, आपका खाना, आपका पीना, आपका सोना, ये सारी चीज़ें जो है चेंजेस आ जाएंगी, बदलाव आ जाएगा। अगर आप टाइम टेबल बना लेंगे तो खुद ब खुद उसकी कदर कर रहे हैं। वो आदमी गंवा देता है जो नहीं जानता। भाई ये एक सफेद पत्थर मिला, मैं नहीं जानता कि ये हीरा है, मुझे अवेयरनेस नहीं है, मेरी समझ में नहीं आ रहा है, तो मैं क्या करूंगा? उठाऊंगा, फेंक दूंगा। अगर मैं जानता हूं कि ये हीरा है, इसकी कीमत 1 करोड़ है, इसकी कीमत 5 करोड़ है, तो मैं फेंक दूंगा? नहीं फेंकूंगा ना, उसको संभाल कर रखूंगा, एक्सपर्ट को दिखाऊंगा और उस एक्सपर्ट को के पास ले जाके बेचूंगा। तो सबसे पहला कदम अवेयरनेस है। सबसे पहला कदम आपको जानना है, आपको मारिफत होना चाहिए, आपको पहचान होना चाहिए कि टाइम कितना कीमती है, कितनी वैल्यू है। तो उसके बाद टाइम टेबल आप बनाएंगे। उसके बाद आपको पूरी जिंदगी, पूरी लाइफ आपकी 50 साल की है, 60 साल की है, 70 साल, 100 साल की, तो वो पूरी लाइफ आपकी फायदा ही फायदा है। एक एक मिनट, एक एक सेकेंड, मैं जो सांस ले रहा हूँ, सांस 1 मिनट में 24 घंटों में कितने मिनट? 1440। तो अगर हर मिनट का मैंने फायदा उठाया, उसको जाया नहीं किया, तो एक 24 घंटे में 1440 मिनट्स हैं। अगर गंवा दिया तो आपने कितने लॉस किए? 1440 लॉस कर दिया आपने। तो इतने ज्यादा, सिर्फ 24 घंटे के, 24 आवर्स के इतने फायदे हैं। तो फिर हफ्ते के, एक वीक के कितने फायदे, एक मंथ के कितने फायदे, एक साल के कितने फायदे? और किसी के ज़हन में कोई सवाल? शर्मे नहीं, जो
आपने जैसे कहा कि सूरह Az-Zahra टाइम को इंडिकेट करता है, क्या और चीज़ में आपके जो
बहुत सारे मैंने बताया ना, बहुत सारे कुरान के मुख्तलिफ सूरों में अल्लाह ताला, जैसे वल फज्र, सूरह वल फज्र, वल फज्र, बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम, वल फज्र, फज्र की कसम। फज्र कौन सा टाइम? सुबह सवेरे, सहर का टाइम, फज्र की नमाज, सुबह की नमाज। वस्सुब्ह वन्नहार, नहार की कसम, दोपहर की कसम, वल्लैल, रात की कसम। बहुत सारे ऐसे सूरे हैं, खुसूसन लास्ट पार्ट ऑफ दी कुरान में, कुरान के 30वें पारे में बहुत सारे सूरे हैं कि जो अल्लाह ताला ने टाइम की कसम खाई है। ज़माने की कसम, सुबह की कसम, दोपहर की कसम, रात की कसम, सहर की कसम, उजाले की कसम, अंधेरे की कसम। ये बहुत सारे पार्ट्स हैं जो कुरान में अल्लाह ताला ने कसमें खाई हैं। यानी इंपॉर्टेंस को बता रहा है। मैं मामूली चीज़ की कसम नहीं खा रहा हूँ, बल्कि बहुत इसकी वैल्यू है, बहुत कीमत है। जी
आपने टाइम टेबल पे बोला था कि टाइम टेबल बनाएंगे तो कामयाब हो सकते हैं जिंदगी में, लेकिन एक टाइम टेबल के रिलेटेड एक जुमला होता है कि टाइम टेबल बनाना एक बात है और उस पर अमल करना एक बात है, मतलब उस पर फॉलो करना एक बात है। क्या आप ये कुछ टिप्स दे सकते हैं कि अगर हम लोग टाइम टेबल बना दें तो उसको कैसे हम फॉलो कर सकते हैं?
दो चीज़ें हैं, एक टाइम टेबल बनाना और एक टाइम टेबल पर अमल करना, दोनों इंपॉर्टेंट हैं। अब टाइम टेबल नहीं बनाए तो किस पे अमल करेंगे? तो पहला कदम टाइम टेबल बनाना है। दूसरा इंपॉर्टेंट जो इससे ज़्यादा है वो अमल करना है, यानी अपने आप को कैद खाने में डाल लेना, जकड़ लेना। टाइम टेबल आपने बना दिया तो उस पर अमल करना है, उस पर अमल नहीं करेंगे तो फायदा कुछ भी नहीं होने वाला है। तो दोनों चीज़ें इंपॉर्टेंट हैं। मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट जो है आपका अमल करना है, फॉलो करना है उसको। जी और हमारी माँ बहनें और बेटियां जो ऊपर हमें देख रही हैं और सुन रही हैं, उनसे भी गुजारिश है कि आप भी हमसे सवाल पूछ सकती हैं, कर सकती हैं। सवाल आपने कर लिया तो वही, अगर आपने खुद जवाब दे दिया तो वही सवाल और जवाब माना जाएगा। जी आवाज़ पहुँच रही है। जी जो हमारी मुंतज़मात हैं, अगर हम आपकी बात को सुन सके तो बेहतर है। वालेकुम सलाम। जी जी देखिए, कुरान मजीद का ये जो सूरा है वल असर, अल्लाह ताला ने सबसे पहले कहा कि ज़माने की कसम खाई, टाइम की कसम खाई है। टाइम की कसम ये है कि हर इंसान खसारे में है, घाटे में है, नुकसान में है, ठीक, मगर चार चीज़ें जो जिसके पास हो तो वो क्या है, कामयाब है। सबसे पहले ईमान, दूसरे अमल सालेह, तीसरे तवासो बिल हक, हक की वसीयत करना, चौथे सब्र की वसीयत करना, एक दूसरे को सब्र की दावत देना, सब्र की वसीयत करना। तो ये चार चीज़ें अगर किसी के पास पाई जाती हैं तो वो घाटे में नहीं है, वो खसारे इंशाल्लाह
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Okay, welcome. Sorry for starting late today. Inshallah, we can try to make up some time. I'm very happy to be here at the Az-Zahra Youth Camp again. Can everybody hear me? Yes? Okay, all right. Alhamdulillah, very happy to be with you guys again this year. It's a little bit sad for me to be here this year without my brother. Maulana Sayyid Asad Jafri is not with us anymore, but I will try to share some information with you that I think he would be happy for you to learn about, inshallah. Can you all recite one Surah Fatiha for his soul before we begin? So our topic for this year is a very good one, mashallah. The topic for this year is awareness of time. Okay, we have several days together, inshallah, over the next few days for this topic. So what we'll do is we'll approach awareness of time in a few different stages. So when we think about time, normally we think about time in three perspectives. First, we think about time from the past perspective. Where are we coming from? What is our root? Where do we get our beginning from? That's how we think about time from the beginning. Next, we think about time from the current perspective. Where are we now? Okay. What are we doing in the current time? What is our responsibility in the current time? And then finally, we'll look at time from the final perspective, which is the future. Future is also very important. What are we going towards? How are we going to get there? What is our goal? So usually we have three different perspectives for time: past, present, and future. We'll try to look at each one every day. Today we'll focus on the past. Where are we coming from? With awareness of time, before you can be aware of the time, you have to be able to think about yourself. Where did you come from? I'm going to begin today by sharing a little bit about myself. Where did I come from? How has it become that I am sitting here today with you in Alipur? And how do we get to this point? I want you to think about this perspective from your own position, from your own. How did you arrive in this place, in this time, in this beautiful building of Dar Az-Zahra? Come the position in that you're here now, sitting in this class, sitting in this youth camp. Okay? So to begin, my background is very briefly, I will share with you my position. I was born in, alhamdulillah, in New York City. I was born to a Muslim family, alhamdulillah, in 1985. I went to a vocational high school in New York City. It's called Aviation High School. Aviation High School, I graduated from there in 2004. When I graduated from Aviation High School in 2004, I was able to get a vocational training to do aircraft maintenance on airplanes. There are two. Okay, does anyone know what FAA stands for in America for aviation? It stands for Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, Federal Aviation Administration. Every country that operates aviation aircraft, they always have an agency to monitor, to regulate, and to make sure that everything is happening safely in that country. Does anybody know what is the name of the aviation regulation agency in India? So, No, ISRO is for space. That's Indian Space Research Organization. ISRO is for space. I want to know what is the name of the agency that regulates aviation, airplanes, aircraft. No, NASA is the entire airframe. It's a license for the engine, to maintain the engine, to work on the engine. Inshallah, on our last day together, I'm planning to show you the inside of the aircraft engine. So I will bring some things for you to see so you can visualize the inside of the jet engine. How does it work? How does it operate? We'll talk about that. After I finished my vocational training, I became a licensed tech in Atlanta, and I teach in Atlanta. I'm a lecturer of aerospace engineering in Atlanta. I'm also a research engineer. I have some projects with NASA. NASA is the research organization for space in America, like ISRO in India. Okay? Don't forget about your homework assignment, all right? We'll ask you tomorrow. Old airplanes from World War II, very old, but they are good for learning. Because they're old, they need a lot of care. So it's good to learn how to train to work on these airplanes. So this is where I got my training for aircraft maintenance. Okay, next. So I want to tell you a little bit about the aerospace engineering program at Georgia Tech in Atlanta. In Atlanta, this is the university that we have. The university has approximately 1,000 students in the aerospace program. We have other programs as well in the university. We have College of Mechanical Engineering. We have College of Electrical Engineering. We have College of Aerospace Engineering. We have College of Civil Engineering. We have lots of different colleges of engineering. We also have, Georgia Tech also has other schools. We have a school of management, a school of business. We have a school of physics and sciences. I want to encourage you all to think about moving towards the colleges and the schools of science. We'll talk more about why, but I want you guys to think about this in terms of why sciences can be a good field of study for a Muslim to explore. Okay, so we'll talk about that. In Georgia Tech, we have a very highly ranked aerospace program. It's the #2 program in America for aerospace engineering. So this is one thing that I wanted to share with you so you understand the credit of the aerospace engineering program at Georgia Institute of Technology. I also told you that I went to Georgia Tech Lorraine, which is in France, and I taught there for about 5 years. When I was teaching at Georgia Tech Lorraine in France for 5 years, I was teaching in France. Has anyone ever seen this before? Does anyone know what this looks like? Eiffel Tower, yes. So this is in France. This is near where I was teaching in Europe. And this is the location of our building in France. In France, I got to develop relationships with aerospace companies. The biggest aerospace company in France and in Europe, actually, the biggest aerospace company in all of Europe and in France in particular is, does anyone know the name? Airbus. Excellent, very good. So Airbus is the biggest company that has aerospace name in France, and they build airplanes in France. Does anyone see this airplane over here? Does it look like a regular airplane? Does this look like a regular airplane? It looks strange, it looks unusual, right? We have a name for this airplane. The name is on the side. Can anyone tell me what is the name of this airplane? Beluga, okay? This is a very unusual airplane. We're gonna talk about this airplane in 2 days. Okay, in 2 days, and on day number 3 of our camp, I'm going to talk to you guys about this airplane, why Airbus has this airplane, the Beluga. Does anyone know what is the name of Beluga? What is the Beluga for? It's a whale. A Beluga is a whale. It's a very large whale in the ocean. We'll talk about why they named it the Beluga. It's because it looks a lot like a beluga. We'll talk more about this airplane when we get to our discussion on time management. All right, next, this is a friend of mine, a colleague of mine. He's an he works for for Airbus. He is one of the engineers, the chief structural engineers for this aircraft. This is a very special, unique aircraft. It's for transporting the parts of other aircraft. They fit inside of this aircraft, they fit inside of it a wing, a fuselage, a landing gear of other aircraft, and then they bring it to their final assembly factory in France. The final assembly factory is in the city of Toulouse. Toulouse is the city where they bring together all the different parts and they assemble it together to make the final aircraft. Okay, so I asked my friend to come to my classroom, and he helped me to give a lecture about the design of this aircraft, the Beluga aircraft. He was speaking to my students. Okay, let's continue. So this is my lab and my classroom in France, in Georgia Tech, Lorraine. I wanted to tell you a little bit about the research that I do in France. In my lab that I have over there, we have a grant from the organization called Clean Sky. Clean Sky is an organization in Europe that is doing aerospace research for the environment. Okay, when we do aerospace research for the environment, we are trying to reduce the environmental footprint of aviation on society. Okay, so what does that mean, the environmental footprint? Can anyone tell me? What do you guys think that means, environmental footprint? Does aviation have a foot? A little louder. Carbon footprint, that's one, very good. What else? What other effects come from aviation onto the environment? CO2, carbon is one. What else? When you guys go to Bangalore, do you ever see airplanes taking off from the airport? Okay, is it quiet? When the airplane takes off, is it very quiet? Okay, what other pollution besides carbon dioxide does an aircraft put into the environment? Noise pollution, right? So the second thing is noise mitigation. The second area of study after carbon dioxide reduction is noise mitigation. How do we make the aircraft quieter? Okay. The third area of study that we have is for pollution that comes from the burning of fuel inside the engine. What kind of fuel do we have inside the engine? Does anybody know? Kerosene. Jet fuel is made out of kerosene. What type of compound is kerosene? Does anybody know? It's a petroleum-based compound. Because it's petroleum-based, all petroleum-based compounds are made out of the same type of chemical chain. Does anybody know what we call the chemical chain? It's called a hydrocarbon chain. The only thing that changes when you go from kerosene to ethylene to propylene to butane, as you explore different compounds, the different compounds just have different numbers of carbon atoms and different amounts of hydrogen atoms outside of the carbon string. These are called hydrocarbon chains. Now, when you burn a hydrocarbon, you're going to produce certain emissions. One of the emissions that's very bad that produces when you burn a hydrocarbon is nitrous oxide. Nitrous oxide, even outside when you're driving in your car or if you are driving in your rickshaw, you are burning a hydrocarbon. When you burn hydrocarbon, you are producing nitrous oxide. The danger with aviation is that we burn hydrocarbons and produce nitrous oxides at altitude. We burn hydrocarbons high in the atmosphere. So that means that we release nitrogen oxides high in the atmosphere, which is very dangerous for the ozone layer, and it's very dangerous for the atmosphere. So this is something that we have to be very careful about. We have to try and reduce the amount of nitrous oxides that we produce in the environment. And so we have 3 areas of study for the Clean Sky Agency in Europe. They are trying to study how do we reduce nitrous oxide pollution, how do we reduce fuel consumption, and noise mitigation. Those are the 3 areas of study for the Clean Sky, and they gave us a grant for 300 kilo euros to begin studying how do we do this for future aircraft. So this is my team. There's a conference that we attended where we published our research, and this is my team where we were sharing our research results. Okay, so I wanted to tell you a little bit about that. Next, I want to talk to you guys about some of the courses that I teach at Georgia Tech. What classes do I teach? Okay, so you can make a note of these classes. I teach the beginning of aerospace introduction, dynamics, which is the motion of rigid bodies. Very important to understand. How does the motion of an airplane work? How do we predict motion, velocity, position, acceleration, all of these things. Thermodynamics, very important. In thermodynamics, we study, can anybody tell me what is the 2 main concepts that are studied in thermodynamics? The first part is from the word here, thermo. Thermo is a Greek word. What does it mean, thermo? Heat, very good, okay? All of the experts in the room are on this side. Okay. So we have thermodynamics, is the study of heat and work, and how does heat and work interact with the environment. That's thermodynamics, okay? And the next course that I teach is fluid fundamentals. The fluid that we study and that we use in aircraft, in aerospace design, is the air. Sometimes people don't realize that air is actually a fluid. Sometimes we think only water is a fluid, only liquids are fluids. In fact, even water, but also air is a fluid, and that's why we have to understand fluid fundamentals in order to understand aerodynamics. I also teach aircraft design and advanced design methods, and my projects with NASA are for zero emissions. You can see they have some very interesting types of airplanes that they want to study. These types of airplanes are only a rendering. This is not a real aircraft yet. This rendering is a rendering of a blended wing body. A blended wing body is a combination of a wing and the body of the aircraft, the fuselage, into one wing. So this is called a blended wing body. The advantage of this kind of design is that you can reduce drag and you can improve fuel efficiency. This is why NASA is trying to study this type of design. This is a hybrid electric powertrain. If we have time, I'm going to tell you more about a hybrid electric powertrain on day 4 of our camp together. This is a new area of study where they are trying to hybridize the jet engine on an aircraft. So we'll talk more about this on our last day together. I want to tell you a little bit about the aerospace industry. The aerospace industry itself is made up of a lot of different areas. Okay? In the aerospace industry, you have fixed wing aircraft. When we talk about fixed wing aircraft, we're talking about airplanes where the wing does not move. That is called a fixed wing aircraft. Okay? This is like a regular airplane. We also have rotorcraft. A rotorcraft is like a helicopter. In a helicopter, we call it a rotorcraft because the wing is moving, the wing is rotating. When the wing rotates on top of the helicopter, that's how you generate lift. So a rotorcraft is a different category of aviation aircraft than a fixed wing because the wing is rotating. Then we have space vehicles, which are like rockets and satellites that operate in space. Space vehicles are very special because they do not need a fluid. They do not rely on air in the atmosphere in order to propel themselves. That's why space vehicles are very interesting. We also have hypersonic vehicles. Most recently, Iran has developed some hypersonic technology, and that's also a very proud thing for us to see because hypersonic vehicles are very challenging to develop. right? Hypersonic vehicles are vehicles that travel at 5 times the speed of sound or more. Okay. We also have unmanned systems. Unmanned systems are systems like drones, blimps, and balloons. These are all categories of study in aerospace. I also want to talk about the different stages of a aerospace vehicle's life cycle. An aerospace vehicle life cycle includes design, manufacturing, operating the vehicle, maintaining the vehicle, and disposal of the vehicle. These are, if you take all of these stages together, this is known as the life cycle of the aerospace vehicle. There are lots of different disciplines involved in aerospace. This is a cartoon, it's not real, but the reason that we make this cartoon is to emphasize that aerospace is multidisciplinary. A discipline is one area of study. For example, one area of study is propulsion. Whenever you design an aerospace vehicle, you have to think about propulsion. How is it going to move? So we make a joke that when a propulsion engineer designs an aerospace vehicle, he designs the entire vehicle to be an engine. When an aerodynamic engineer designs an aerospace vehicle, all he cares about are the aerodynamics. Excuse me. Please send us salawat. When a structural engineer designs an aerospace vehicle, all he cares about is making it very, very strong. So we joke that he just puts a beam in the middle of the airplane. It's not real, but it's just a cartoon to make this idea that the aerospace vehicle has lots of different disciplines that contribute to the design of the vehicle. An aerospace engineer, their job is to manage all of the different disciplines and bring them together in one single design. Okay, so aerospace has many different disciplines inside of it that you can study and that you can specialize in, and these designs come together to produce the balanced vehicle in the end. The aerospace sciences that you guys can study, that you can think about studying, flight dynamics is a big study, orbital mechanics, atmospheric sciences and space, the generation of lift and drag, propulsion, structures, guidance, navigation, control. These are all aerospace sciences that one can specialize in. And so I want to encourage you guys to specialize in the sciences, because when you go into the sciences, it gives you an appreciation for the world that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created around us. And so this is an important appreciation for us to have. I want to talk more about this on our second day. Okay? I wanted to show you a little bit about the forces that are acting on an aircraft. Okay? When we talk about an aircraft in flight, there are 4 main forces that act on the aircraft. The 4 main forces that act on an aircraft are weight. Where does the weight force come from? What causes weight to occur? The acceleration of gravity towards the center of the earth. Okay, so that's where the weight force comes from. Okay, where does the thrust force come from? Thrust is the second force. Where does that come from? The thrust force comes from the propulsion system, the engine on the aircraft. And the propulsion system moves the aircraft forward. The propulsion system has to be strong enough to overcome the drag force. Where does the drag force come from? Does anybody know where the drag force comes from? I heard it over here. It comes from the fluid that we're moving through. What is the fluid for the aircraft that it's moving through? What is the medium that the aircraft is moving through? Air. Air is the medium. Inside of air, air has viscosity. Just like all fluids have viscosity. Does anybody know what viscosity is? Somebody tell me what viscosity is. Have we studied viscosity before? Someone wants to tell me in the back. What is viscosity? It's a property of all fluids. All fluids have viscosity. What is viscosity? Okay, I think we have our second homework question. Our second homework question, let's do a little research. Let's find out what is viscosity. I want someone to tell me tomorrow what is viscosity. Okay, look it up and tell me what is viscosity. All right, so the drag force comes from the fluid that we're moving through. The fluid is the air. Finally, we have the lift force. Where does the lift force come from on an airplane? Yes? Are you raising your hand or are you sleeping? Yeah, but where? Which part of the aircraft creates the lift force? The wings. The wings create the lift force. But do the wings create lift all the time? What has to happen in order for the wing to create lift? The aircraft has to be moving. If it's not moving, then there is no airflow over the wing. When you have airflow over the wing, that's when you can generate lift. We'll talk about the generation of lift and drag tomorrow. I'll show you some diagrams where we can create high pressure and low pressure using the shape of the wing to generate lift. We'll talk about that inshallah more. So these are the four forces that act on our aircraft in order for us to generate the aircraft in flight condition, create the flight condition. All of these forces must be balanced. If they're not balanced, we will not be able to fly the aircraft. Sometimes, in some conditions, we make one of these forces greater than the other. For example, on takeoff, when we're going down the runway, we try to make the lift force greater than the weight force. When the lift force is greater, then you can take off into the air. Now what I want to do is I want to come back and talk about what are the forces in our society. I want to talk about these forces because it's really important for us to have appreciation for awareness of the time. In order to have appreciation for the awareness of the time that we're living in, we have to know what forces were impacting how we got to this point in our lives. One thing that I want you to know about Alipur. Alipur is a unique place in all of the world. I have been to several cities in America, in Canada, in Europe. I've been to many countries in Europe, in America, also many states, and in Asia. I've also gone to different places. I can tell you from my perspective, there is no place like Alipur in all the world. Allahumma salli ala. Okay, so I think you're all very happy to hear that, and that's good. But when you are given a ni'mat like Alipur, you also have a lot to answer for. Alipur is a very big ni'mat. How did Alipur become this way? Was it always like this? Alipur became this way. It was created, it was established, and it was guided with sincerity, with khulus. Because it was guided and created with khulus by our ulama, because it's led and protected by our ulama and our Islamic scholars, the barakah, the blessings of Allah come to Alipur because of that guidance, because of that sincerity. This should be a lesson for us. Everything that we do, we must do with khulus. If we do it with sincerity, we will have blessings from Allah that we will be able to see in this world and in the next world. We also have to be humble and thankful for what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to us in this world. And I want you guys to know, when you are growing up in Alipur, you are growing up in a society that is protecting your iman. That is very, very important to have when you're growing up here. But when you go outside of Alipur, you are not in an Islamic society. When you go outside of Alipur, you are growing up in a society like I did. In America, the same is a non-Islamic society. The non-Islamic society is a dangerous society to grow up. You have to be very careful. You have to be careful about what you allow yourself to experience, what you allow yourself to see and to hear and to think about, so that shaitan does not attack you and overcome you. Shaitan is always there, but we don't want to allow him to overcome us. So, when we live in a non-Muslim society outside of Alipur, we have to be very careful about how we carry ourselves. So, the way that we carry ourselves, there are many different ways to connect with Islam. I want you guys to have an appreciation for this, because I want you to connect with Islam in a very sincere way. There are many things that you can do to connect with the deen. There are many different ways that the Ahlul Bayt ﷺ have given to us in order for us to get closer to our deen. You don't have to use every single method. It's not important to come to the deen using every single approach and every single way that we have to connect with Islam. Islam is not about quantity. Islam is about quality. The more sincere you are, the better you will be able to connect with Islam. So I want you to find one or two things that help you to connect with Islam, and do them sincerely. When you do something sincerely, it doesn't mean that you do it one time and you forget about it. When you do something sincerely, you have to repeat it. You have to do it over and over again. I'm sure, mashallah, all of you are training yourselves to wake up early in the morning before Fajr to pray Salatul Layl. When you pray Salatul Layl, don't do it one time and forget about it. Try to make it a consistent habit. Try to do it regularly. Choose something in your life that you can do consistently and regularly, so that it becomes sincere in your development. For me, I will give you an example. When I was growing up in America, one thing that my family always did, the masjid was very far from our house, but every Thursday night, my parents always took my family to the Du'a Kumail program. On Thursday night, every Thursday night, my parents would take us for Du'a Kumail, every Thursday night. This is something that we did regularly. When I left New York, and when I left my parents' home, I went to Atlanta to study at Georgia Institute of Technology. When I was studying in Georgia Tech, I was by myself. I did not have my parents watching me. When you leave your homes and you go to study, you may not have your parents there watching you all the time. We want to make sure before we leave our homes, the things that we do to practice our deen, we do them sincerely. We don't do them because somebody's watching us. We don't pray namaz because our father is telling us to pray namaz. We don't have good akhlaq because our mother or our parents or our grandparents are telling us that is a good thing to do. We do these things because we know that is, if we do them sincerely, this will bring us closer to Islam. It will bring us closer to our Creator, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, pick something that you can do, that you can use to connect with the deen. When you connect with the deen, remember a lot of our methods of connecting with the deen, like the Quran, like our du'as, particularly Sahifa Sajadiyah. If you open up Sahifa Sajadiyah, it has a dua for every experience of your lives that you can have. Does anybody know how many du'as there are in Sahifa Sajadiyah? How many du'as do we have in Sahifa? From our fourth Imam. Someone who's no, pretend you didn't hear that. How many du'as do we have in Sahifa?
51.
Not 51. Bataiye. 54 du'as. We have 54 du'as. Some of the du'as are for children. Some of the du'as are for our parents. Some of the du'as are for plagues. Some of the du'as are for the soldiers on the front lines. Some of the du'as are for connecting with the Quran. We have so many du'as in Sahifa. Find a dua that you can connect with the language and the words of the fourth Imam, Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The words of the fourth Imam are so powerful and moving. If you pick one dua and you do it regularly, it will become part of your heart. It will become part of your ruh. This can be one way that you can connect with the deen. Try to do these things on a regular basis, because if you don't connect with the deen, there are already many distractions. We have a lot of distractions already all the time. Some of the distractions are in our hands all the time. Shaitan is always in our pocket. He never leaves. So you have to find some way to connect with the deen. Okay? Find something that you can do to be sincere. Our marhum, Maulana Sayyid Asad Jafri, he used to say, this world is a bridge. Have you ever seen anyone make a home on a bridge? MashaAllah, in India you can find homes everywhere. But you will never find a home on a bridge. This world, he used to say, this world is a bridge. It is a bridge to connect us from here to our akhirah. Do not forget that this world is a bridge. We don't build our home on a bridge. Our home is where we are going to be everlasting, for forever, for eternity. Eternity is our home. That is what we were created for. This world is just a bridge to get us there. In this world, we want to earn our home. But don't think just because we have a very, very nice home here, that home will come with us. Okay, so please make sure that you don't plan your life for this world. Though this world is here to help us to get our life in the next world. All right, so live in this world so you can attain the next world. Okay, please remember that. There's something else that was very close to the heart of Sayyid Asad Jafri that he always tried to emphasize, and I want to remember those efforts of his by talking a little bit about the Mazlumeen of this world. If we want to talk about the importance of time, the awareness of time, we have to be aware of what's happening in the world around us. If we think about what's happening in the world around us, in terms of the awareness of what's happening, we should know who are the oppressed people in the world today. The oppressed people in the world today are in every corner of the world. There are arrogant powers, evil powers. They are spreading injustice throughout the world. There is an army, the army of Israel. They like to call themselves the Israeli Defense Force. I don't call them that. I call them the Israeli Occupation Force, because they are occupying. They are zalimeen. They are the oppressors. They are occupying a territory in a land that is not theirs. If we look at and try to understand and bring awareness of the world to ourselves today about this situation, we have to ask ourselves, where did this come from? So the origins of Israel, if you think about it, it was on paper, it was announced in 1948. In 1948, almost 75 years ago, in 1948, there was something that came from Great Britain, from the UK, another oppressor and a zalim in this world. It was a colonial power. It was called the Balfour Declaration. In the Balfour Declaration, they decided that after World War II, they have oppressed all of the Jews for so long, so they are going to take that and give them a home in Palestine without asking the Palestinians. So that place that we have where the Palestinians have been removed has now come to this situation today where the Palestinians are being killed, where they have over 13,000 people who have been killed today, up until today, just from the beginning of this month. Half of them are children. I want to talk a little bit about, the situation in Gaza. Sometimes people don't understand what's going on in Gaza. The size of Gaza is very small. It's 10 kilometers by 41 kilometers. 2 million people live in Gaza. 2 million. That is bigger than the population density of Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, they live on top of each other. It's very, very urban density. This is bigger than the density of population in India. Okay? So, sometimes people don't realize that Gaza is a place where no one can get out. No one can escape from Gaza. They have built walls around Gaza. You cannot go past the walls. They have checkpoints. You cannot get out by sea. There's no access to the ocean because Israel has blockaded the ocean. There is no airport. Over here you can go to Bangalore, you can fly out. There's no airport in Gaza. You cannot fly out. Everything is enclosed. This is why we say that Gaza is an open air prison. It is a prison that no one can get out from. So we need to understand how this came to be. In the next couple of days, I'm going to continue talking to you about this open air prison. I'm going to continue talking to you about awareness of the Muslimin in this world. But I want you to know that we do have hope. There's a placard in the protests that we have. There's lots of different protests happening around the world. There's one placard that said, even if they kill all the children in Gaza, still there will be a Musa that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will save, and that Musa will come to do justice in the world. So this is always something that we can take hope from the Quran, because the Quran tells us that justice will be spread in this world, and we believe that our Savior, the Imam of our time, will come to bring that justice to this world. Please recite aloud salawat for Imam al-Zamana, salamuallahu alayhi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa alihi. I think we're out of time. I'm sorry that we started late, so we'll end here for today. We'll pick up again in tomorrow's session. We want to take some questions. Do you have any questions? Inshallah, I'll try to answer. Wa alaikum assalam.
As a some questions. Sir, I have seen that first, like in 19th century, supersonic planes were being flying. But what was the reason it discontinued?
Very good question. Yeah, so the question was, in the earlier in the days of aviation, in the 1980s and the 1990s, we had supersonic commercial flights. Does anybody know which aircraft used to operate supersonic commercial flights? No, it's not supersonic. It's very slow, actually, the Beluga. Which aircraft used to operate supersonic flights? It used to operate between London and New York and Paris and New York. The supersonic aircraft was the Concorde. Okay, so the Concorde doesn't operate anymore for two reasons. One, and the most important reason, because Concorde was a commercial aircraft, it was designed to generate a profit. When it was not able to generate a profit, they stopped flying the Concorde. The reason it couldn't generate a profit is because it was very limited on the routes that it could fly. The reason it was limited on the routes that it could fly, it could only fly transatlantic routes or over the ocean, oceanic routes. When you fly over the ocean, you can fly supersonically and create a sonic boom. A sonic boom is a very loud pressure disturbance. It's not only that it's loud, it can also create physical damage on the ground. So when an aircraft flies supersonically over the ground, a shock wave is heard on the ground. This shock wave can break the glass It can cause disruption to hearing for people, and so it's very disruptive on the ground. So we don't fly supersonically over the ground. Sometimes some military jets, fighter jets, they will fly supersonically over the ground, but if they do, you will hear a disturbance on the ground. So this disturbance limits where you can fly supersonically. So the Concorde only flew supersonically over the ocean, because over the ocean, you don't disturb any human beings. You only disturb the animals, and unfortunately, we did not care about the animals. So we disturbed over the ocean, we flew supersonically, and the sonic boom hit the water. It did not hit the ground. But this also limited where you can fly. Now you can only fly transatlantic routes. You cannot fly from Bangalore to Hyderabad with the Concorde, because on the ground, everybody will be disturbed. So when you limit where you can fly because of the sonic boom, now you cannot generate enough money to operate successfully. The other thing is that the Concorde used very fuel inefficient engines. The engines, which were the Olympus engines, the Rolls-Royce Olympus engines, the Concorde had 4 of them with afterburners. It needed afterburners, or what we call relight, in order to take off. So this was very fuel consumption heavy. It used a lot of fuel. When you use a lot of fuel, it costs a lot of money, and when you can't operate in lots of routes, then you cannot generate revenue to make a profit. So these are all the reasons why the Concorde stopped operating.
Thanks, Doctor.
My question is like as we are shifting from fuel to electric cars. So how much far are we pushing from fuel to electric aeroplanes?
Yeah, so I think the question is, how far are we from electric airplanes? So right now, if you look around, sometimes you can find electric cars. Okay? We have cars that are powered by electric batteries and motors. So the question is, can we also have that for airplanes? Okay, so I have a NASA project that's called Hybrid Electric Propulsion, and the intention is to create a hybrid propulsion architecture. The problem is that we do not have enough energy inside of the batteries to support the amount of energy required by the aircraft. The energy density of hydrocarbon fuels like kerosene is much higher than the energy density of batteries. Because of that, we're not able to carry enough energy on board to support long distance electric flight. They have some aircraft now that can do short distances with very low payload, but not like the distances that we need for commercial operation. So maybe we'll get there one day, but right now, the battery technology is the problem. When is NASA started? So NASA actually began taking off in about the 1960s when the American space program was going to the moon. But NASA's forefather, the parent agency of NASA, which was known as NACA. NACA was the National Aerospace Consortium, but it was the National Aeronautics Commission. So it was not before NASA, it was NACA. Before we had space. So NACA was created in the 1920s. In the 1920s, we were trying to improve the design of aircraft wings and airfoils. That's why we had NACA. NASA came into the picture in the 60s when we added space into the administration of NACA.
Any questions in ladies? I think ladies.
They can. I already already gave them homework for tomorrow. They have like questions for.
They're getting late actually. That's the reason.
No problem.
I think ladies now.
Yes, yes.
Yes.